Hi, everyone, and welcome to our evening with Elle Cosimano. We're so excited that we have so many people joining us online, as well as a group of folks that are at Craft in downtown Cedar Rapids that had hopefully a wonderful book discussion leading up to this. And now I hope you have some questions because we're here to talk about Finlay Donovan and your young adult books too, because you have a new one coming out next month, right?
I do.
So
Yep,
we're
we've been busy.
So we're excited that you're with us today, Elle, and I'm just going to I'm going to read your bio, which I will say not every author has a press kit, so thank you for having a press kit. It makes my life as a bookseller a lot easier because I can just pull everything I need from that. So this is Elle Cosimano.
Hello, everybody.
She is an award-winning author of the acclaimed young adult novels Nearly Gone, Holding Smoke, The Suffering Tree, and The Seasons of the Storm. And what's the next book in that series called?
Seasons of Chaos is the next book in the duology, so that'll close out the Seasons duology, and that is out June 8th.
Exciting. And her debut novel for adults, which is what we're here to talk about tonight, Finlay Donovan is Killing It, kicked off a witty, fast-paced contemporary mystery series and came out in February and has been getting a lot of buzz, especially from Amanda, Ursula, and I. Elle's debut, Nearly Gone, was the 2015 Edgar Award finalist, winner of the International Thriller Award, and has been nominated for multiple state book awards. Her most recent young adult thriller, Holding Smoke, was an International Thriller Award nominee and a Bram Stoker Award finalist. In addition to writing novels for teens and adults, her essays have appeared in the Huffington Post and Time. Elle lives with her husband and two teenage sons, who have to be quiet tonight, in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Central Virginia. As we said, she writes thrillers, mysteries, and speculative fiction for both teens and adults. So welcome to our virtual event, Elle, and hello from Swamp Fox Bookstore.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So tell us a little bit about, we've been chatting a little bit earlier today to do a tech test and just before the start. So what does a day in the life of Elle Cosimano author look like? And I know today was kind of an exciting day for you.
Yeah, it's really not as glamorous as one might think. Today was kind of an unusual day because I had a deadline this morning, and so I'm feeling very Finlay today because I was up until 4 o'clock in the morning finishing my manuscript to get that out by 8 a.m. this morning. So yes, it was a very Finlay night last night. But actually, Finlay's schedule isn't all that dissimilar to mine. I have been a homeschooling mother of two children for many years, since way before the pandemic. And so my days are kind of split between motherhood and writing and career. And so I typically spend my mornings and most of the chunk of my day helping my kids mentoring them through their home studies, and afternoons are spent doing mom stuff, whether it's errands or prepping dinner or running to doctor's appointments and all of the usual things. And my work day typically starts after dinner, so I'm a nighttime writer. I typically put my butt in the chair at about 7 o'clock right after dinner and work until about 3 in the morning. So that's my writing time is at night when the house is quiet and everyone is asleep, and I can really kind of think through my stories and where I need to be. And now that we're very busy with Finlay, doing kind of post-release publicity and lots of Zooms and lots of book clubs, I'm kind of balancing all that during the day and the evenings as well. So it's got my work day is kind of like a lot of moms right now who are working from home through COVID. We're juggling and balancing a whole lot of things in our days, and work and motherhood is sort of all starting to blend together.
Sounds busy.
It is.
So is Finlay somewhat based on real life for you?
There are elements of the story. There are elements of the story that resonate very deeply with me. Obviously, my children are older teenagers now. They're 15 and 18. I have one getting ready to go off to college this fall and another who will be shortly behind him. But I remember very vividly those days of early motherhood. And so a lot of those kinds of feelings, the stress and the constant chaos of motherhood and the pull of always needing to be something for somebody at any given moment. A lot of that kind of both joy and frustration made it onto the page as I was writing. And then, of course, Finlay's career, a lot of I play quite a bit with exaggerating a little bit about the world of being an author. But I think what might surprise a lot of people is a lot of the references to her career and writing and her schedule and publishing. Not all of that was really terribly exaggerated. So a lot of that and the frustration that she felt with her career, trying to become successful, finding a lot of people tie their appreciation for your work to your income and you're only as good as your last sale kind of thing. Those come from a very real place. And so it was almost cathartic at times to poke fun, a little bit of fun at our industry and also at myself. And try not to take it all too seriously, but it was there are elements of there are grains of truth, I think, in all of the underlying elements of the story that I feel like help the reader suspend disbelief through what is really, really kind of an outlandish wild ride. And it's sort of those heartfelt, real moments that I enjoyed most, I think, when I was writing the book.
So what's the difference between writing for young adults and writing for young adults versus adults? Since you've written so many young adults and this is your first venture into adults, is there a lot of difference there?
I don't find so, no. And of course, other people might answer that very differently. But for me, there's not a great deal of difference between writing for and about teens versus writing for and about adults. My process is entirely the same. Really, the big difference is just the age of the lens that the story is told through. You know, the life experience, so to speak, of the protagonist and how they perceive the world based on who they are and where they've been in their lives. So for me, the process starts with asking the characters the same questions, whether they're young adults or mothers of young adults. Is who are you at the beginning of the story, and who are you going to become by the end of the story, and then how do I get there?
And how much research did you have to do for Finlay? How did you figure out, like, I think about the scene with her drugging the guy in the bar and then getting him into the car. Like, he's a big man. That seems so awkward.
Yeah. There are a lot of aspects of the research that I had done previously for other books, because I have my nearly duology is there's a lot of crime and forensic angles in that story. So I was able to take some of that research, the ride-alongs with the deputy sheriff, the visits to correctional facilities, the Writers Police Academy experiences I had, the forensic classes I took, the tours of the Northern Virginia Crime Lab had all been done before. So I was able to kind of, cultivate some of those experiences and use them for this book. But my husband he's in IT and network security, and sometimes he just gets so upset with me because he says, your Google search is enough to put you on like every government watch list, because I've searched some of the most ridiculous things in the name of research for my book. And sometimes he just shakes his head. But that's, I think, for me, always been one of the most fun parts of what I do, is the research elements of the story. And then, of course, we play a lot. I play a lot with, kind of stretching truths and making making truths work in a fictional setting. And sometimes that means massaging details. But what I found is that the more outlandish the story, the more unbelievable the story, the more those grains of truth have to ground the reader in something that will allow them to suspend their disbelief. And the research is where I find those opportunities.
Have you had any interesting things you found in research that you wanted to incorporate that you haven't been able to incorporate?
Yes, but I'm going to hold those close to the vest because those might come up in subsequent books. We have a lot of Finlay ahead of us, so I need to keep some things up my sleeve.
I can't wait to see what trouble she gets into next.
Mm,
So you've just finished book 2, and
yes.
then how many books right now are projected in the series?
We originally sold as a 2-book contract to get us started and see where things go, because always the length of a series depends entirely on sales. So, it's always kind of an experiment until it's out of the gate and we sort of see how people are responding. And we've been delighted, and I think the publisher is really tickled by everyone's reception to the book. We're really super excited for book 2, which comes out on February 1st. And just this week, we ironed out a deal for books 3 and 4. So the next 2 in the series will be on their way in 2023 and 2024.
Ooh, exciting. I can't wait.
And then, of course, the
And you
length.
can pre-order all those when they are available for pre-order from
Yes.
Swamp Fox Bookstore, or if you're not local, from your local independent bookstore. So we
Yes,
can keep getting
absolutely.
more.
Absolutely. And, of course, the length of the series, because people always say, well, how many do you have planned? Like, in your mind, how long would it go? And it's like, well, that's not really up to me. That's up to all of you. If it were up to me, I would write them forever. But it really depends entirely on how the series sells over time. So for now, I have in my head sort of a loose map for the first 4 books, and then we go from there and see.
Fun. So you got some other more good news when it comes to Finlay Donovan, and that it has been picked up to be adapted for the small screen. What was it like when you heard that news and you found out?
Oh, that was so I've been writing for more than 10 years, and I've got a sizable backlist of young adult literature that has done well, but I have never had a book get close to adaptation. So this was the very first time, and it was super duper exciting. The whole family got really worked up and excited about it, because it wasn't just that we had a little bit of interest. We had a lot of interest. And so it ended up that I was talking with a lot of studios and producers,
Wow.
lots and lots of phone calls, which was wonderful. It was very Hollywood, like like in your mind, when you think of how these conversations go, it really wasn't that far off. Like there was a lot of, I'll have my people call your people. And it all felt very strange during times of COVID to be here in my pajamas in my Zoom room, having these kinds of conversations with people whose movies I've been watching or TV shows I've been watching for years. And that's sort of a really, really surreal experience to have them say that they read the book and loved it. I'm very, very lucky because I was able to choose the partnership that I felt most comfortable with, that I was most excited about. And I'm tickled to say that Marlene King, who was the producer for Pretty Little Liars and the spinoffs from that, will be adapting Finlay for television through 20th Television Studios. And her excitement for this book is unparalleled. She is super, super excited about the project, and I have complete and total confidence that she's going to pull it off with pizzazz. She's wonderful, and she's got a great love for the source material. So I feel like the adaptation is going to stay very close to what we see in the book.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So my favorite book, Outlander, has been adapted for television. That was a very long journey. I know I've been a huge fan of this for a lot of years, and I know that Diana has some involvement in the show's production. Do you know what your role in the production of Finlay Donovan will be?
Yeah. So right now, where we are is the option for the rights is being held by 20th. So what that means is that they have put a hold on those rights while they are in early stages of development. So we're in the process of Marlene's writing the pilot episode in terms of the screenplay. We're looking for our Finlay. Then from there, we look for our network. And once we kind of get all of that in a row, which during COVID has really taken quite a while, at that point, ideally, we move forward from there. So And now I've lost my original. What was the original question?
What is your role in all
My
of this?
role. Oh, my role. So if that was where I was going, if we make it through all of those little baby hurdles, my role ultimately will be executive producer. And really, all that means is that I get to probably consult creatively once in a while. Marlene is really going to be at the helm of the production, and in terms of casting and screenwriting and show running and all of those great things. But I get an opportunity to offer feedback on backstory and the direction of the print series, so that we can make sure that the two series, both the TV and the print, align as closely as we can get them.
That's awesome. I'm excited. Well, if there's anybody on the fence, just send them our way. Any of us, Ursula,
Awesome.
Amanda, and I, will be happy to convince someone that they need to take this on and produce
Wonderful.
it.
Good.
If anybody in the audience has questions, you can click the questions button or drop your question in chat, and we can grab those from there, and we'll love to see what your questions are. Whether it's about the young adult books or about Finlay Donovan, anything you want to know, we'll get those questions answered.
Yep.
My favorite thing to ask authors is you go to these events, whether it's in person or virtual, and you talk about the books. But what's one thing, whether it's book related, author life related, or your personal life, that you wish people would ask you about? And would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, it's so funny. I wish that more people would ask me about my website, which I was so tickled that you went and visited and saw the press kit, because I work really, really hard at keeping it current, because there are a lot of exciting things happening right now, but also because it is a bevy of information and resources and links for not only my books but all of my writing, interviews, and lots and lots of great information for book clubs and extras for all of the books. And what I find is I get a lot of people, and social media makes us so accessible. So I get a lot of people who will send me all of their questions by direct message. And I'm like, I have all this great information on the website. Please visit my website. But one of the things that I really love that's there that a lot of people don't know and don't ask about are my essays. So obviously the books get a lot of attention because they have pretty covers and the publishers put them out, and they get bookstore placement, all these things. But I have a few small pieces of writing that I'm super proud of, and I think answer a lot of questions about who I am, both as an author and a mom and as a person, and my thoughts on craft and all of these other things that I love to share with people. And I wish more people would take the time to read, because those are things that are fun to talk about too. And so if I could get all of my readers to drop by the website and read through some of those smaller pieces, those are fun for me to talk about.
Is there a favorite essay that you have that you've written?
There's one in particular that I wrote for the Huffington Post years ago about my thoughts on good guys and bad guys, and how I grew up. My father was a maximum security prison warden. And so our dinner conversations were probably very, very different from the norm, but kind of having a very tangential exposure to that world very young shaped a lot of my thoughts about good people and bad people, and how those lines are blurred more often than we like to acknowledge. And so I wrote an essay that ran parallel to the book Holding Smoke that I had written at about the same time, about an incarcerated juvenile who was investigating his own the murder that he had been convicted for wrongly. And so that piece is one in particular that I'm super proud of, but I think it also sheds a lot of light on how I craft character and how I craft mysteries, and kind of what shaped me as a writer in terms of my experiences growing up.
I can see that with Finlay, because she's obviously ends up doing things that you kind of wonder, is she good or is she bad, right? Because of what she's tackling, the people she's going after.
And it's fun too, because the neat thing about Finlay's character is, or what I loved about creating Finlay's character is, I'm taking this she could be any of us. She's this very relatable mom. And taking her and putting her in situations where I'm pushing her toes as close to that line as I can possibly get them without letting her cross that line into an unredeemable place. And it's fun as a writer to explore those limits in terms of, what makes good people do bad things, and are there any cases when those are something we can still cheer for, and and at what point, like, what is the breaking point, how does that happen? And so it was really, really fun, I think, to explore those ideas with Finlay and Vero, and see their unique reactions as I pressed them closer to that line.
Honestly, I love Vero because she just nudged Finlay just a little bit further. Like, we're gonna do this. Like, this is good for both of us. It's sort of stretching their limits and moving through life together as partners in crime.
And that's kind of where Vero's character came from in terms of inspiration, is the whole idea of women supporting women, but also the idea that the best friendships, and I think the most supportive friendships, push us outside of our comfort zone, but always to be a better version of ourselves. And so I had come up with Vero's character, not that she's like my critique partners, but that relationship I see as being very similar to my relationship with my critique partners. They are always lifting me up, supporting me, unconditionally. But there's also that nudge, that gentle challenge when I'm holding back, and they know it. That level of honesty, that we have with each other, where I always feel like they're pushing me to be my very best. I didn't want to write this book when we came up with this story. I was convinced I was not qualified to do it justice, and they were the ones who said, "No, this is your book, and you're the only one who can write this story. So get busy." And so it was like kind of a very Vero nod, like a boost to my confidence, a nod that I could do it, and then a kick in the pants that I needed to get going.
So I do have a question from the group at the coffee shop. They said, I listened to the book based on Terry's recommendation. Did you have any involvement in choosing the narrator? She was great and would be a good choice moving forward.
She's fabulous. Angela Daw is so talented. So the way that it typically works with audiobooks, and I'm still fairly new to audiobooks, I've only got a few of them in terms of my own books. The way that it usually works is the publisher will narrow down 2 or sometimes 3 choices for actors or actresses who are interested in narrating the book. And they will send me either an audition, like a little sample of audio audition, or links to other books that they've narrated. And I can listen to the voices and decide if any of them sound like the voices in my head. So when Angela Daw's audition came over, it was an immediate, like, I knew right away. Within 5 minutes, I had emailed back the publisher and I said, I know exactly, Angela Daw is the narrator for this story, because her voice almost 100% matched the voice in my head. And I'm so glad that we went in that direction. She's phenomenal, just phenomenal, so talented.
And I hope that she's available for the future books too.
I hope so too.
I thought she sold me as soon as she got the daughter's the 4-year-old's voice. Like, that was when I was like, okay, I'm in. Like, you can get a kid's voice and sound like a little kid as an adult. Yeah. I was in. Plus that scene at the beginning with the duct tape in the hair.
Yeah. She's got this fantastic sense of comedic timing, and there's such a dry wit in Finlay's voice that I thought she captured really beautifully.
Yeah. And I know speaking to another author earlier this year, there's a real talent there because they're doing that all as they read it. It's not like they're recording the text and then putting in dialogue later. It's like they're going from the descriptive text right into the dialogue. Those conversations are happening in real time with themselves, essentially.
Yes, and bouncing back and forth from voice to voice, and it's an incredible talent. It really, really is.
And there was a question about the number of books, and right now there's 4 scheduled, right?
There's 4 under contract, yeah.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions from the audience? Anything burning? Anything else you'd like to share with us?
Oh gosh, only that I am having such a wonderful time. COVID, I think we talked about this earlier, that COVID has created a lot of challenges, both for authors and booksellers and everyone within the publishing and creative communities. But the one beautiful thing that I think has come out of this year has been this, right? This exactly what we're doing right now. We're kind of learning to reach readers and booksellers in really unique and new ways, and I'm loving it. I'm having a phenomenal opportunity to talk to and connect with more of my readers, and social media has been another phenomenal way to do that. Bookstagram, if any of you are members of the Bookstagram community, find me there. I find so much joy in following the Finlay Donovan is Killing It hashtag over there, and seeing everybody's cover cosplays and cover recreations. I've had people dressing their dogs and their cats and their children as Finlay Donovan, and I just think it's so great. But it has been so wonderful to feel at a time when we all are feeling very disconnected. It's been really, really wonderful to connect in new ways. And so this is, there are all these great ways for readers to reach out to me, and I hope that all of you will join me on social media and drop by and say hello once in a while.
Carrying those diaper bags with the chef's knife in it.
Duct tape.
That scene also sticks in my mind, that first scene in Panera when she's getting washed and she realizes she had the bloody towel and the knife, like all stuffed in the diaper bag.
Yes. And I keep waiting for someone from Panera Corporation to reach out to me and offer me free soup for life. I mean, what else does a woman have to do? But
yes, their chicken noodle soup is some of my favorite soup out there. So it looks like we don't have any more questions right now, but if anybody does have any, drop them in the chat. I'm going to do my quick fire questions, which are my favorite to do. Okay. And I know that some of these are hard. Okay. Like the very first one, what is your favorite book? And it could be your favorite book right now or ever. It's up to you.
You're going to think I'm totally copycatting, but one of my very favorite books of all time is Outlander. I love the whole series, but the very first book is, I read it over and over again, and it just stuck with me. And it's just fun.
It is fun. So Heather has a question. She's asked, what is the most challenging part of the writing process for you, and where do you get your ideas?
Oh, wow. My ideas come in really strange ways, and really random moments. And sometimes I've had, like Finlay, that came from a real moment. If you've read the acknowledgments in the book, then you read a little bit about the story of how Finlay Donovan came to be. The original idea of Finlay Donovan came to be was actually in a Panera, and I had an eavesdrop moment where someone was overhearing me plotting me a novel and assumed I was up to no good. And so like there are those moments that kind of take hold. Others are much, much smaller. Whether it's I had one, but The Seasons of the Storm came from a GIF or a GIF, depending on where your school of thought is. But I was part of a short story, like a flash fiction group online, and I was challenged. They sent me just a little tiny clip of a girl with pink hair with butterflies in her face. And I had to write a short story about it. And that short story grew. It was the seed of inspiration for the duology. so it's kind of, usually it's just a moment. It's like a glimmer of an idea that sort of scratches at something, and then I can't let it go. It just sort of becomes something. In terms of the most difficult part of the process, which I think was the second part of the question, is actually the most important part of the process, and the biggest part of the process in my mind is revision. A lot of people don't realize that probably the lion's share of writing, maybe, in my experience, at least 75% of it, is the work that we do in revision. It's not writing, but actually rewriting. It's shredding and burning and taking apart and dissecting and moving and cutting and hacking and slashing. It's a very violent process. There are a lot of words on the floor when it's over, but really, that first draft is usually very, for me, a far cry from the end product. And so revision is really, it requires for me the deepest level of concentration and thought, the most pain in terms of the process, the most trial and error, but it is also the most rewarding, because that's really where we mine the thematic gems and the character gems, and all those fantastic discoveries that we make through writing, usually for me, come during revision.
And the revision part is so important, and I don't know that a lot of people understand it. In my previous job, I worked with authors that were at many different stages in the writing process, so I understand how gut-wrenching that revision process is and how long it can take. So how long, I don't know if I asked you this, how long did it take to write Finlay, Donovan? Because you've been working on the other books, young adult books too.
Yeah, so Finlay, the idea for Finlay, that first moment in Panera happened 3 years to the exact day before the release date.
Wow.
So it was 3 years from seed to shelf. But during that time, a lot of things are happening, right? So there's the drafting, which, could take me 8 weeks. It could take me 6 months, depending on, what other things I'm working on under contract and my other deadlines, and how solid the story is in my own head before I sit down to do it. And I spend, and of course, if it is not yet a sold book, then the sales process, of getting that under contract with a publisher, and then of course the editor or the publisher, depending on their vision for the story, it could start the process all over again. So it's really kind of, there's no one real solid answer to that question, but I spend equal amounts of time in revision that I do in drafting. So typically I can draft a book in anywhere from 10 to 16 weeks, but I'll spend easily that much time in revisions and edits over the course of the process.
It sounds like you have some really great critique partners to work with too.
I have the best critique partners. We have been friends and critique partners for each other for more than a decade. We were at the same agency when we all started, and we were all new. We were all debuts, all writing young adult thrillers. None of us really knew what we were doing, and we didn't have any critique partners. So our agent said, you three get together and fix each other's books. and it was such a great, perfect fit. And we're all moms, and our kids are all very, very similar in age. So we were kind of all at very similar points in our lives, and it made it such a joyous experience, because writing can be a really lonely process.
It is.
And for me, having partners, my partners in crime, literally, but having partners, people to bounce ideas off of, people that will not be afraid to tell you when something is not working, and will let you, fail forward over and over and over again until you get it right, and support you all the way, and let you whine and complain when things aren't going well. It's such a great relationship. And so I find my critique partners are so much more than just, people who will read and look for, misplaced commas. They're everything. They're my developmental editors. They're my motivators. They're my soundboards. And it's been a phenomenal relationship.
That's awesome. So, one question about the series too with Finlay is, will the books be interconnected? Will you have to read them in order, or do you envision that they'll somewhat be standalone so you can jump in at any point?
That's a really good question. I find they work so far because it's still really, really early on in the process. They work better if you've read the first book because that really sets up, if without trying to spoil for anyone who may not have finished, when you get to the very last line of the first book in Finlay Donovan, and then your jaw drops to the floor, and you're like, "What just happened?" In that moment, that line, that very last line, becomes the springboard for the mystery in book 2. So, part of my job in drafting book 2 is trying very early on to concisely and efficiently recap what happened in book 1 for anyone who might be coming in midstream. But I don't imagine they're easy to read if you're bouncing around quite a bit. So my hope is that people will start at the beginning and stick with them all the way through. But if you were to fall into the story, someone leaves a book on an airplane and you just happen to pick it up, chances are you're going to have a really good time.
That's awesome. So, what profession other than yours that you currently have would you like to attempt?
If I could go back and do my education over and start and try something really fun, I think being a forensic scientist would be awesome.
When I was in college admissions, it was when CSI and ER were big shows, and the number of people that would say, "I want to do what they do on CSI," or "I want to do what they do on ER." That was like the number one thing when I was first starting out in that profession.
I love it. It's funny. My very first book came out in 2014, and there were some forensic elements in that story, and they were for young adults. And I had a fan who was at the time, I think, a junior in high school when she started the books, and they became her favorite books. And this past year during the pandemic, I got an email from her. She's now a forensic scientist in Washington, D.C., and she fell in love with the books, had no idea that was even an option, and went to, I guess, her guidance counselor and said, "I want to talk about doing this." And so actually reading those books was what kicked off her career in forensic science. And now I have a resource in the field for when I need field research, which is great because she's right here in Washington, D.C. But, if you can't go back to school and become that dream job that you've always had in the back of your mind, there's probably no better next best thing than inspiring somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I get the question a lot whether I want to write a book, and it wasn't until I read Eddie LaRue last year that I could really tell people what I am, and I'm a story keeper. So I'll keep stories and I'll share them with others, but I more than like whenever write my own. So that's I love inspiring other people that have that goal in mind, what the steps are, because I do know it from the idea point all the way to ending up on the shelf. So it's a long road.
A long road, but a joyful one.
Yes. Yes. So are you a coffee drinker or a tea drinker?
Both. So I drank copious amounts of coffee until about 2 in the afternoon, and then I switched to tea, and I drink that until I conk out at about 3 in the morning.
Is there a favorite flavor of tea that you have?
This one right now I've been into. It's the spiced chai lately.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Because I need a lot of caffeine.
My favorite thing to put with chai is apple juice or apple cider.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Blame Starbucks. It was a holiday drink they had at one point, and then I just started asking for ice because when you heat up that chai, it gets a little bit spicy. But if you chill it down with some ice and some apple juice, it's really, really nice.
Cider.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
So I know the answer to this one too because I've read your bio. Are you a dog person or a cat person?
I'm actually both, but we do have a dog. So I have an 8-year-old golden doodle named Lucky, and he's hilarious. And Yeah, he's super. So if you want to see my dog Lucky, you can go to my Instagram, and he is all over my
I saw them
Instagram.
on there. He's cute.
He's a big goof.
So the toilet paper, does it roll over or under in your house?
Over. No question. This I have very strong feelings about. Yeah, tea, coffee, we're good. Dog, cat, we're good. It's got to be over.
The last author I spoke to, he didn't know, and then his wife chimed in on the chat with the answer.
Right.
So for books, do you prefer physical books or electronic books?
Oh wow, that's kind of an interesting question because if I had my druthers, I would have a huge library with physical paper books, like hardbacks galore, just fill it up. But we spent 6 years living abroad in very minimalistic kind of approach to life for a while. We sold everything we owned and we moved the family to Mexico, and we lived in a little grass hut for a really long time. And so I became very accustomed to my e-reader because I could have hundreds and hundreds of books in this little tiny space that I could carry with me when everything we owned had to fit in the back of one car. So, so yes, I love to collect physical books, but I'm actually most of the time reading electronically.
I'm the same way because a lot of advanced reader copies now are electronic, whether it's an electronic audiobook or an electronic galley, because that's a lot easier to
Yeah.
distribute than a physical book. So I go back and forth. What are you reading right now? Anything?
Well, I just finished Deadline, so haven't been reading too deeply, but I always have something I'm reading, and I just finished Christina Lauren's In Holidays, which I loved, and I picked up the Bromance Book Club.
Yes.
Am I getting the title right? Loved. Just finished Namesake, which was the second in the duology to Fable, and I love Adrienne Young. Her books just blow my mind. They're so good. That was a fantastic fantasy. And loved My Lovely Wife, Samantha Downing, was a fantastic thriller. And because I have a lot of friends who are authors, I get the opportunity to read a lot of books before they come out. So actually, most of the books I read are in ARC forms or very early galleys. Is
there one you're particularly excited about coming out?
Yes, Such a Quiet Neighborhood, or Such a Quiet Place. Such a Quiet Place. Megan Miranda's new one. And it is fabulous. It is really tense and very twisty, and leaves you guessing like way until the end. And yet it is so completely Megan in terms of the voice, and the storytelling is fantastic. Tomorrow, if you enjoy a little YA and some fun rom-com, Ashley Elston's her companion book to 10 Blind Dates comes out tomorrow, and it's a fantastic graduation story. It's super fun. Really enjoyed that. And yeah, so I've had the opportunity to read some fantastic books before everybody else gets to rave about them.
The only problem with that is that then there's nobody, like, I get so, like, you're going to ask Ursula and Amanda, there'll be a book off, like, I've read Addie LaRue in April of last year and didn't come out till October. Oh. So, like, there's nobody, unless I find somebody, you find somebody else that has read the advanced reader copy to like, just, get very excited with.
Right. And that's the hardest thing. You've got to wait till they come out before you can have somebody to rave about them with. Yeah.
So my last question, if there are no other questions from the audience, I'll ask my last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear when you cross over?
Oh, wow. I think the mom in me, the first question that comes to mind is that the people I leave behind will be okay. But the author in me would love to hear that wherever I'm going, not only will my loved ones be there, but maybe some of my characters too. So,
yeah. Yes, I'm sure sitting down and having coffee with Finlay would be, and Barrow.
So fun. So fun. I wouldn't turn down coffee with Julian or Nick either.
True. Maybe a drink with Julian.
Exactly.
if there are no other questions from the audience, is there anything else you want to share with us, Al, before we call it a night?
No, just that I thank everybody for reading and enjoying Finlay Donovan. And if you loved book one, be sure to pre-order book two, which is Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. That'll be out February 1st. So we should see a cover here very soon.
Which means it will be available for pre-order usually as soon as that cover comes up. Looks like we
Yes.
have one question pop up here. Oh, it's Amanda saying thank you so much. It was
Thank
great to
you.
see you tonight. And hopefully when it's safe that you can maybe come to Iowa and visit us here, even if
Absolutely.
it's just driving by and waving.
I would love to. We're definitely planning some road trips next year once all of this is behind us. And I would love to drop by and see you all.
That'd be awesome. There's some great bookstores. I tell everybody there's like this great corridor of bookstores. It like starts up in Decorah and comes all the way down through Marion and goes down to Iowa City. So
Awesome.
it's you can do a really great road trip that way. We're only 3 hours
Awesome.
from Chicago, so
All right. That sounds good to me. I'm looking forward to it.
yes. And maybe we'll, if we can't, see you in person, we'll do another virtual event for the release
Yes.
next year.
That would be great. We'd love
Great.
it. All
We'll
right.
stay in touch and let us know how it's going. We always want to hear more from our authors. And thank you for allowing us to do this virtual event with you. We can't wait to continue reading more of your books, including
Thank you.
the next Finlay Donovan book a year from now.
Yes, or not even. It's almost here.
I know.
Soon, soon, very soon.
Well,
Well,
have a
thank
good
you.
night,
Thank you for having me, everybody.
and
Bye-bye.
we'll see y'all later.
Okay.